hip-hop soul in the crowd. Yeah.
All right, everybody, welcome back in to the Rob and Stu Show here on the Pulse Sports Network. Remember, like and subscribe. We are on the YouTubes. We are wherever you get your podcasts. Tell a friend. Help out the pirate ship. Let's keep it going. Last week, if you missed it, talking SEC football with SEC Mike, go check that out. Some wild claims about LSU. We'll see how that pans out. We're back to what we do, though. We're back to degeneracy. It's summer. We're talking animals running in circles, specifically horses. It's Belmont Stakes weekend, one of the best weekends of racing in all of the seasonal card, I think, between Friday and Saturday. Roberto and I have done our due diligence. We got a packed show for you coming up. Mike Maloney talking Belmont Stakes. David Aragona, young man from New York trying to make a name for himself. We'll invite him on, see how he does after giving out a 23-1 winner that Rob couldn't cash, but that's another story. Roberto, before I introduce our first guest, though, any words about Kyle Schwarber?
He's hitting over 165.
Anything you want to say about Kyle Schwarber?
I'm not gonna curse him this week, but the Phillies stink. I mean, they're lucky they're playing the Poverty Tigers.
But you know our deal. We're one game away. You cannot say anything negative about the Phillies if they sweep the Tigers.
If they sweep the Tigers, I'm not allowed to say anything negative. If I want to, Trey Turner stealing money, war criminal. You didn't hear it here, but whatever. He'll get better.
I did hear a rumor, an innuendo that Trey Turner was actually supporting ISIS in Syria in 2017. That's what I heard. That's a rumor I heard on Twitter.
This guy, this is a gun in the ski mask the way he's playing. This is horrible. You look at some of these contracts around baseball. Look at DeGrom today. He's having Tommy John surgery. The Rangers just pissed away $72 million. The Mets are paying Lindor $300-something million. The guy can't hit above 220. Gets booed off the field Saturday in New York. Trey Turner right now, absolutely. It's some of these contracts in baseball. See, Nick's lucky. Nick's an Astros fan. They draft well. They actually know how to run a farm system. When you're fans like me and Stu of just teams that just overspend in free agency, the hobby biases of the world, it's tough.
How dare you? That's assault. And bringing our good friend Nick Tammaro back on the show, catch him in the Money Players podcast. He's out there with our boy PTF. You're doing Sam Houston race caller, morning line odds maker at Keeneland. What don't you do except root for a good baseball team? Your thoughts, Nick?
Root for a fine, upstanding team, right? Made up of gentlemen. No, the Astros have been bitten by the free agency bug, I guess you could say, a little bit too, because we shelled out some money for Jose Abreu, and that's not gone well. And one of their other off-season signings was Rafael Montero, whose ERA is above 6 now, after he was a good setup man through much of the playoffs last year. But yeah, it's they also committed 5 years, $85 million to Lance McCullers 2 years ago, and he is like his Tommy John seems to be taking 3 years to recover from. So I will admit, I did chuckle a little bit at the DeGrom news today, as I'm sure you did as well, Rob, being a Phillies fan and being an Astros fan, and the Rangers giving him all that money. I was like, yeah, you got what you deserved.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was funny. Well, one thing funny about the Met fans, they'd always be in your face with DeGrom, we have the best pitcher in baseball. It's like, okay, they do. He is. I said it today. He's probably one of the best pitchers of the last 25 years.
Yeah.
But it was amazing when he left for Texas, and Philadelphia is a lot like this too. When you get psychotic sports cities and people that obsess like myself or New York fans.
Mets
Philly
fans
and New York fight a lot.
I'll say this: Mets fans are known historically as very reserved, very calm sports fans.
Yeah.
Very rational.
Yeah.
They do enjoy sodium, though, Rob.
Yeah.
I did hear that.
Yeah,
they love sodium and salt and extra salt on their prime ribs.
he got dragged by most of the fan base. They couldn't stand that he went to Texas. You know, they thought he was just cashing in on a payday, but now it's amazing. Like they have a really good offense, the Rangers. I think their pitching, they'll finally come back to earth maybe at some point, but their lineup right now is just, it's mashing.
No, they're hitting it a ton. I'll tell you, there's something funny too about New York because, and maybe well, the Yankee fans are no different, but there's like this mind meld that playing in New York puts on everybody. So I was listening, obviously I drive home from the track on Friday and Saturday night at, 11:30 at night. And so I put on the Buster Olney podcast last week, and Carl Ravitch was on, and Buster Olney asked Carl Ravitch who the best, if you had one pitcher in baseball right now to choose to start a game, who would it be? And, of course, I mean, I'm biased, but I would say Framber Valdez, because Framber's been nails in the playoffs, and, he's pitched great this year. And Carl Ravitch said Verlander. And I'm like, Verlander?
Verlander.
I mean, and
he was terrible in that
I'm
game.
not a Verlander hater by any means. I'm glad that he found a free agency home, but it's like, really? That's probably not in the top 10 for me.
No, absolutely not.
Nick Tammaro says Justin Verlander overrated, shouldn't make the Hall of Fame.
No,
that later.
No, should make the Hall of Fame in a Tigers cap.
Okay, thank you. You saved yourself there.
There's still an investigation going on as to how that team that had him and Price and Scherzer got swept.
This is turned into assault. Let's get into the horses. This is a gang beat down here.
Rob and I didn't even coordinate this.
I know you guys are you no offense, and I say this lovingly. You're both scumbags. Lovingly, I say that. New York Stakes Friday, race number 8, 1.25 miles on the green stuff. The Chad Brown Open. And it's nice of them to invite some other folks into this. Should be exciting. I'll lead it off with Nikki the Boss at NTAM1215 on your Twitter machine. Google him. Take his thoughts. Use what he says, because he's a lot smarter than us when it comes to picking horses. Nicholas, Miguel, Banchero, Tammaro, lead us off.
Yeah, so, Chad's obviously had a lock on this race for quite some time. And interestingly, he's running 4 horses in here and doesn't have one of the top 3 choices. So on the morning line, at least, I think when all is said and done, market segmentation could go off a little shorter than her morning line odds. But the reason why that happens, of course, is because of Warlike Goddess, who, everybody that follows the game, at least to some extent, is pretty familiar with. She's been a remarkably consistent mare over the last couple of years, including, winning multiple grade 1s en route to the Breeders' Cup Turf Try against males last year. The interesting thing that Bill Mott had to decide was what to do in terms of a summer objective. She's not necessarily been in one piece at this time of year. In the past, he's given her some time off, or she wasn't quite ready. So he's going here, but it's only 1.25 miles. And the concern is will she get her engine cranked in time at 1.25 miles? Now, you almost wonder if Joel put her into the race a little bit more last time with the idea that, hey, by the end of the year for the Breeders' Cup, that's going to be 1.25 miles if she goes against females. So let's see if she can run a little bit earlier. And she did it successfully. So she's clearly the horse to beat. There's no doubt about that in my mind. I think the pace will be decent enough. I don't think it's going to be scorching by any means, but I do think you'll have market segmentation up there. I think Didia will be relatively close. Flirting Bridge looks like she's got a little tactical speed as well. They never fly in a race like this at 1.25 miles, but it feels like it'll be honestly run. And the horse that I'm most interested in outside of Warlike Goddess is market segmentation, so it's going to mainly be 4 and 7 for me, but I'll press a few extra tickets with just the 7 because I do think that Warlike Goddess might just be better than these horses.
I'm with Nick on market segmentation. I know that name probably just put you in a freaking suitcase, Rob. I know.
Oh,
you
know me.
You were
me
sitting there.
my
There's
jersey.
an M.
Yeah,
there's
my
an
jersey
A,
accent.
breaking that out. Roberto, are you going with anything outside of what me and Nick like here?
I'll tell you, I kind of like the 2 a little bit. One of Chad's fillies. It's funny, like Nick mentioned, he really doesn't have a killer in here. He kind of just. It's
what
odd
is the
to
name
see
of the
him.
2 horse, Rob?
Yeah, forget it. Forget about me trying to
No, I
pronounce
just
that.
just for the listeners that don't have the PPs.
I'll just call her Sarah for this podcast at 8 to
That's
1
not the name
with
of the
Flavia
horse,
and
but
Brett.
okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a little shot on her. I thought she was a little wide, the Churchill race. Draws back down to the inside. Honestly, like Nick said, Warlike Goddess is really hard to bet against. Now, this is an odd angle, but, right now, maybe this will lead to a little bit more of a discussion. Rosario just seems like we were talking at the beginning of the show, a Trey Turner, a Lindor. This guy just seems to me to be in a funk. I don't know what it is watching him. I just think I don't know if he's in his own head. His riding right now is just come into question when you watch a lot of these races. I just don't think he's on his A game. Not that you're never going to not bet a horse because of a jockey, but I think if you were looking for an odd angle, I mean, Rosario right now is just, I don't know. To me, he's not on his A game. And I'm not like one of these jockey critiquing people, obviously, at, pushing 280. So, obviously I'm no jockey expert, but, I don't know. He's just, to me, he's riding really bad right now.
Yeah, he struggled in 2023 so far. 12%. You're talking about a guy that probably has a lifetime win percentage in the upper teens, if not 20. So I do think he's ridden a little bit better at Belmont. I know there are people who would disagree with that, but that's also made up a lot of the Twitter police that base everything on the last thing they saw. So, I know he took some heat for that ride on Far Bridge the other day. He really didn't do anything wrong on Far Bridge. That horse is very hard to ride. So, Rosario's about 18% lifetime. I hear you. I don't. The other problem is that, look, this is a horse that he butchered once before too, right? He blew the Flower Bowl on this horse last year at 1 3/8. And, the thing about that race is that was a particularly slow paced race. And, I don't think this pace is going to be that slow, but 1.25 miles for her, he's got to get her going, and he's got to get her into. The other thing too is they'll take the rail down to Belmont on after Thursday's card. So we've seen this race in years past play out very favorably for horses with inside trips. And so, hopefully he'll be able to get her into a comfortable spot, but he's got to get her out at the quarter pole and give her as much time as possible to start running, especially if they haven't gotten that quickly. And, Joel can give you a little heart attack when it comes to getting into position at the right time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right on Farbridge. I will say that. I mean, I don't know, a lot of people on Twitter were really criticizing the ride. And I don't know, to me, I just think, like you said, that horse, he's a funky horse. I mean, he looked like he was dead coming around that turn. I said, he's not even going to get a check here. I mean, and then all of a sudden he kicked it back into the inside. I think he's a little overrated, though, that horse. I don't know your feelings. I think he's a nice horse, but I don't know. The
He's
price and then
overrated.
switching from Clement to Fletcher with a turf horse, that's not really, I don't know. I thought it was an odd move.
He's a rail rat also, right? I mean, if you look, he only runs when he can see the inside. And, there are horses like that. Sometimes horses become that as they get older, but usually the odd thing is that they usually are more comfortable when they can see the rail, but they'll still run when they're close to the rail. That horse seems like he only runs when he can see the rail. Yeah. So it's a big problem because, it's tough to make up ground coming from way off of it, needing to be inside as well. You're talking about really having to find a needle in a haystack.
Yeah, Alan Jerkins, they say, used to always say, like, in a turf race, the winner won and the 7 other people behind him should have won the race. I mean, that's like exactly. Everybody in a turf race always has the excuse.
That's why the fields are big, right? Trainers can tell.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Lost by a length.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, they always have the excuses. Oh, you always know that.
Let's head over race number 9, the Acorn Stakes, 1.16 for the ladies. On the brown stuff they call dirt. Roberto, what horse is not going to win that you think will?
Well, if this was Pimlico, I'd have to bet Brittany Russell because she doesn't lose at Pimlico. Maybe now ship it to New York, be a little bit of a different story. I tell you, I was shocked in the 8 bells when Money's Gold got beat. I thought she was a cinch that day, like everybody else. I was shocked she lost that race. Todd to me is always interesting with these fillies, especially the younger ones. I mean, his speed horses a lot of the time will be okay, but I think when they start to get beat, I don't know. Not that it's a knock on Fletcher, but when his speed horses sometimes when they show they lapse a little bit, especially the fillies, because he's harder on a horse. And I don't know. When his fillies start to go the other way, I don't know. I'm not a fan of Money's Golden here. If she's gonna win, I'll let her beat me. Um, I tell you, at a price, I really do. And maybe I shouldn't say a price, but the two for Chad Brown. I watched her race when she raced in her maiden at Saratoga. I thought she was pretty decent that day. Chad horses really don't show a lot of speed usually in their first race. She showed a little speed, got tired. I loved her comeback race when he stretched her out to a mile. Chad, to me, when he has a little bit of a layoff with a horse and he can point like he does in the Preakness or for certain races on the turf, I think he's dangerous like that. I think he's been prepping this filly all spring. She's my best bet on Friday. I love her at 5-1.
What is the name of that 2-horse, Rob?
Randomized.
Randomized. You heard it here first, folks. Randomized. The 2-horse. That's Roberto's best bet. Randomized.
I love this filly on Friday.
Okay. Nick, do you also like randomized, or do you like another here?
Randomized. So.
Randomized.
Right, randomized. Yeah. I don't have much of an argument against randomized. I guess my biggest worry is that the filly that was second to her last time out is kind of a career maiden type. Didn't come back and run particularly well, but it was in the slop. So, I have a hard time reading these types, because when you get into the situation she did last time out, where she dominated on the front end, and now she's in a race where, I mean, quite honestly, it looks like a long shot that she's going to get the lead. She could still find her way into a very good stalking trip. You wonder if maybe you're trading out a lot of bullets in the holster by putting her in a position where she's not dictating terms to everybody else. Now, what I will say about that is that for a Chad Brown horse with this kind of profile, I wouldn't want her at 2-1, but at 5-1, it's a different conversation. So I think you'll get every bit of that price wise, because I imagine the public is going to be pretty hot and heavy on Money's Gold. My concern with Money's Gold going into her last race was I felt like Todd Pletcher was very deliberate in terms of how he campaigned her going into Derby weekend. And I wonder if she's a filly who needs Lasix. That's my concern, because she ran significantly worse than she had in her other 3 starts last time out without Lasix. So that's still a worry. And of course, if you're talking about a horse that may need Lasix, and you're going extra distance, I don't want her. So I'm going to use Pretty Mischievous. I'm going to use a little bit of Darth Vader. I'm going to use Randomized probably as a backup, and I'm going to use a seed. I'm going to be deep here because I'm going to single in the Belmont Gold Cup, which we'll talk about in a minute. So it'll be have to be one of those 4 for me, but the 2 prominent ones are going to be Pretty Mischievous and Darth Vader. I thought Pretty Mischievous ran really well in the Oaks. I don't have a knock whatsoever. She always traveled comfortably. You kind of knew coming towards the quarter pole, the way Tyler was in the saddle, like, hey, he's got a lot of horse under him. And she really feels like she's going to get the best of the setup in here. There's a ton of speed, and I'm figuring he's just going to drop back and let her make one run. The reason why I respect Darth Vader so much is because I felt like she ran in a sneaky way kind of a really good race in the Oaks as well, where she was always close. She never really gave up. The other pace horses got obliterated. Now she's with George Weaver. I still think a mile and a 16th is far for her. I think she's probably better at a mile or less. But the one turn could be a thing, right? Her Devona Dale was so good around one turn. And in terms of thoroughgraph figure and buyer, Timeform US, she's right in range with everybody if she runs that race. So that's why I want to give her a little consideration as well.
Would you know how much, I'm just asking you off topic, how much that Eclipse paid for Frosty O'Toole off of Mike Deeney?
I don't. I'm guessing.
I'd have to guess somewhere in like the 300 range, right? I would think so. To put her in a race like this.
Yeah, I'd say probably. She's a filly that doesn't look like she's got much pedigree. So she's got some residual value being a filly coming off an allowance win. I'd say probably no less than 3, no more than probably in the neighborhood of as much as $500,000.
Yeah, I just thought she was. Yeah. For them to make that purchase, no knock against Mike Dean. He's a Monmouth Park trainer. A guy like Fletcher gets into her hands, and she has one start there. He probably only had her a month. 2-3 weeks. Sits on her a little bit. Now she comes back off a 2-month layoff. I mean, not to say I'm going to probably use her a little bit underneath, just at a price.
I think getting a spot underneath is right in her wheelhouse because she's going to sit back and make one run. And that was why I tweeted today about where is Wet Paint. She'd be the favorite in this race, given the way it unfolds on paper.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'm surprised she didn't go.
I'm with Nick here. I'm more along the lines of 6-8, and I think I'm hemming and hawing on how much I want to include a cult in here. I feel like this is a horse, Nick, where it's like there's moments where you see the talent. I don't know that the numbers certainly match up. You can say maybe pace compromised a little bit in the Gazelle. But if this is a decent pace, I think this one can rate a little bit. Same mentality thought with the 8, a seed there. I feel like this race is going to be one from off the pace, and I just want to trust somebody who I know is going to be coming off.
Yeah, Cole was my sneaky Oaks horse coming into the Gazelle because I thought that everybody else had kind of become exposed and we knew that none of them were really all that great anyway. And I thought, everybody's sleeping on Occult. She ran really well in the Busanda, and she was just awful last time. I don't know what the hell happened, but it was almost a too bad to be believed kind of performance. And I've forgiven horses with that type of running line in the past. I just wish she had been a little bit better before that. Then I'd be willing to say, hey, look, throw out her last, because if she runs back to 2 back, then she can definitely win. But if she runs back to 2 back, she can't win. Speed figure wise, she'll have to improve probably 8 to 10 points there. But that Busanda looks a lot better when you figure Gambling Girl was second and she nearly won the Oaks, and Affirmative Lady won a Gulfstream in her next start. So, I mean, that race looked like a dud when it happened, but, it was really looking better as we got towards the Gazelle. And then again, she just kind of flopped. So I don't blame you running style wise. She looks to fit the profile.
Big purchase also. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about getting a race for him. I mean, if you ever want to be a horse owner, just look at some of the price tags.
It's
Chad
incredible.
had one Saturday at Monmouth in the last race. I can't think of the figure. It was up in the 6 or 7s, and it was down in a maiden 10 claimer. It's like, oh man, you just the joys of owning racehorses. It's just amazing.
And look at Mage. He cost virtually nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You never know.
Well, they say he had something with his mouth, right? That a lot of the
Something
people
like
didn't
that,
like
yeah.
at the sale. Yeah, some kind of overbite.
All right, let's head to my favorite race of Friday. As always, the Belmont Gold Cup, going 2 miles. 2 miles along the green stuff. Nick, which European horse are you singling here?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be a chalk-eating weasel, but Siskany is like a total cinch in this race. I mean, he's running. First of all, he's running against 4 jumpers and a bunch of American horses that have no business going 2 miles. And the only other European horse is from Joey O'Brien's yard, which, I mean, I'm a huge Joseph O'Brien fan, and I still think to myself, I have no idea how that kid was a jockey when he walked by me in the paddock at Santa Anita at the 2014 Breeders' Cup, and we were the same height. And but anyway, that horse, by definition, he's just he's a hurdler, and I really don't know if on the flat he can even be all that competitive. I think Joey's trying to get a free trip over. So yeah, Siskany's like a real marathoner, a horse that ran very well in Dubai at 2 miles, lost to Broome. Broome was one of the choices in multiple stakes races over here over the last couple of years. Actually ran a good second in the Breeders' Cup Turf behind Yabir in 2021. So I'm expecting Siskany to be extremely tough to beat.
All right, Nick.
Yeah, and he also
says...
drew well. And he also drew well to me with that inside post. I mean, that's the only thing I should think sometimes. I know it's a 2-mile race. Post position draw is probably overrated, but I kind of like when them favorites have an inside draw, get right to the rail, save some ground. I don't know. I think it bodes well for them. I thought it was interesting, Channel Maker, just to switch back to Saez. Not that I'm a big jockey guy, even though I brought it up in 2 different races.
You're absolutely a big jockey guy. I don't know why you would
I don't
say
know.
that
Going back to him, I don't know. Like you said, coming up with a price in this race is pretty tough. Maybe the Grand Motion on the outside, the Gray Wizard. Yeah, that was a pretty impressive race at Keeneland. I mean, Grant Motion, I always think picks the spots well in these kind of races. Like, I don't ever think he's the kind of guy that just brings horses to race him. I mean, he's not going to bring a 90-1 shot into the race. He's a, great turf trainer, obviously. Knows how to get him ready without the Lasix. I mean, that's another big thing in this race is, we talk about it all the time in these stakes races. I mean, with the no Lasix, it's hard to judge sometimes. I mean, these European horses, that was a huge thing years ago. I mean, Bobby Frankel, they would bring them over there first time Lasix. That would improve them
Oh, yeah.
horses like nothing. And, without the Lasix now, it's definitely changed. And, Heises went into effect now. So it's definitely tough handicapping these races. It's not easy.
Yeah, I agree completely. And the other thing about this race that is worth noting is that there have been multiple runnings of it where the paces have gotten pretty fast. And in fact, I think it was last year, it may have been the year that Ahmad won the race. The group that I'm always at the Belmont with, we were sitting there and somebody said, well, they're way too far behind. And they were going down the backstretch the second time. And I said, there's a lot of horse race left. Like there's over 5 furlongs left when you're halfway down the backstretch at Belmont, where, halfway down the backstretch of virtually any other track in the country, you're around 4 furlongs left. So yeah, you can get very tired very quickly. And last year, the race completely came apart as well.
Oh, you can see, yeah, Tide of the Sea is going to blitz this field, and at one point is going to look like Secretariat. Because I feel like the 4 is going to just absolutely gun it and just go straight to the front, open up an 18th length lead, and then somewhere around race number 2 that it's trying to run is going to get hit by Oswald from the Book Depository.
This would also have to be the first time too, right? A horse prepped at Turf Paradise for the New York Mile with the 9 Tartini.
The best story about the Hasta La Vista at Turf Paradise was the year the guy thought that it was over, and he's pumping and driving with a furlong to go, and his horse is up by 15 or 20, and he crosses the wire and he salutes the crowd and he's standing high in the saddle, and he realizes by the time they hit to turn it, they've got to go around again. And so by the time he does, he's shot, done. So yeah, I noticed that the prep for the Belmont Gold Cup truly is the Hasta La Vista.
I'll tell you what, not a bad horse to own though. They picked him up for 25,000 at Del Mar last September. That's nice claim.
It was a good claim. He had a nice winter, no doubt about it. He's I'll tell you, I don't really think that it's out of the realm of possibility that he runs third in this race either.
Yeah, listen, for what is the purse? 2 million?
This one, I think it's 400.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, 250,000. What am I thinking? 2 million.
That's cute.
Worth a shot.
That's what Trey Turner earned tonight in his at bats.
Yeah, that's right.
In their 1-0 win.
Yeah, huge win.
Big win. Please put me out of my misery. All right, race 11. Let's finish it. Intercontinental Stakes. Great former champions of this race, such as Kurt Henning, Bret Hart. You know the drill. Real big winners. Roberto, I know you have some crazy idea here, so what do you like?
I want to ask Nick his opinion on one thing, and it's not just the race, but his gambling strategy. I have such a hard time, even though, all the years at the track, the race, going through everything. These turf sprints are just sometimes in these races, even the stakes races on bigger days. I just seem like these turf sprints that they put me in an absolute pickle. Do you have a certain strategy you go with? I always try to stick usually with speed. I can't stand closers in a sprinting turf race. Maybe if the race sets up perfect for one, but I don't know. I have such a hard time with turf sprints.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's something that I've definitely not mastered by any means. I definitely do, like you said, and I try to shy away from deep closers. I think you also have to treat them all very differently, right? I mean, 5 at Del Mar or 5 at Pimlico, 5.5 at Churchill, 5.5 at Saratoga, 6 at Belmont. 6 at Belmont is a very honest race, in my opinion. You're going to get a good pace. Generally, you're going to have enough time for the closers to unleash their rally. So I find myself generally trending towards speed types, but I'm not scared to take one coming from a little bit, maybe a little bit farther back at 6 at Belmont, especially at 7. At 7, I have no worries taking an off the pace horse whatsoever. So, and that's an interesting part of the conversation here because this race has very little speed.
Yeah, there's not much at all. I made a nice little hit on the 3 when she debuted at
What's the
Belmont.
name of that
Yeah,
horse
okay,
for
nice
our
try.
fans?
Yeah, yeah, no shot. No
Okay.
shot me pronouncing that.
It sounds a little bit too much like a body part that we're not.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair
Yeah.
point, Nick. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So
Thank you for saving us.
Yeah.
We're gonna leave that one to John and Brielle.
Yeah. She raced pretty good that day, though, from the outside. It was a tough post position
She
draw.
did, yeah.
She was dead game. I just took a shot with Graham motion off the layoff, getting her in first time. I don't know what she can do in this field. I just wanted to throw it out there that I did have a winner every once in a while. And you got to toot your own horn. You can't let it go by, especially with a guy like Stu, because if you give Stu a horse and it loses, he's never going to let it
Nick,
go.
he gave me your horse, Archangelo, a few weeks ago, and then claimed that, like, we talked in the morning, and I was like, hey, Nick made a really strong point about this
said
horse.
You didn't look at the
and then he goes,
oh,
yeah, I like that one. I like that one.
I said she ran good. He ran good numbers on the sheets. I like to play the sheets on bigger days. He had good sheet numbers coming into that race.
He did. He was a stick out on the sheets, and his time from US number was gigantic, which usually those two are pretty close, all things considered. This is a tough race. I think one of the 2 Brad Cox horses on the outside is going to win. I'm more inclined to take Going Good because she's going to be a better price. I just don't know how they're going to be ridden respectively. And my hope is that they're aggressive with Going Good because she is fast enough to clear this field pretty easily. But they were conservative with her last time. They were conservative with Bubble Rock as well. And Bubble Rock really beat her on the square. Going Good had a very good trip. So, I guess my issue is that I think when push comes to shove, Bubble Rock just might be a much better horse. The variable there is Sarah Harper, because Sarah Harper is a filly that at one point had a ton of speed. And, it's almost as if it's been trained out of her. And last time she came from deep in the pack, I mean, maybe that was something that Joel Rosario came up with, but she ran very well. And, I think she's dangerous here because if she improves on that effort, then she can win this race and you're going to get a good price on her as well. So, mainly 7-8 for me. I'll back up with a little 1-2-5 probably. Again, I'm going to use Siskany to kind of buoy my action on both sides of him.
Yeah, I'm approaching you would think an experienced guy like Johnny V. Too.
I'm approaching it the same way, Nick. I'm approaching it the same way. With Siskany as a single, I'm going to spread a little bit liberally. I hate to say this, but I actually like the 3. I'm with Roberto here. I think this horse could be very good in this race. Second off the layoff for Graham. Roberto, I'll let you finish up before we head to break.
Oh yeah, no, sorry about that. You would think a guy like Johnny Vasquez, he likes to put, when a no speed like that, an experienced rider like him, you would think he's going to have Base Storm right on the front in this race. Just put the best horse on the front end and see what happens. Like Nick said, without a lot of speed in the race, you think he should be right up there. Maybe Bubble Rock 6.5. He really doesn't show a lot of speed. But with Rosario, you never really know. But for me, it's Base Storm in here. He's going to be my main pick. I'm going to use the 3 underneath a little bit, but I think Johnny V goes right to the front here.
That's something I didn't probably give enough consideration, but yeah, she's got plenty of speed as well. So I mean, when she's made the lead, she's run well, especially going shorter. But yeah, I would imagine he'll ride her forwardly as well, because I mean everybody else is going to know that there's a shortage of speed in here too.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, in New York, like we've seen, like you said, 6 furlongs sometimes, but in New York, you will get those races where they're going to the half, and you're like, well, that happens. Was it Saturday or Sunday still with the Chad Brown in the stakes race? That was Sunday.
No, that was
I mean, at the half, it was just, that's it. I'm done.
Wasn't that Saturday?
It was Challenge mistake, yeah.
Yeah, it was Saturday. I mean, that race was over at the half.
Yeah.
It's weird who may have singled Kalik. It's weird. It's weird who could have done such a thing. Hate to see that. Nicholas, Miguel, Banchero, Tammaro, thank you for joining us as always, my friend. where you're going to be doing a lot of work this week. It's Triple Crown season. It's finally winding down a little bit. You can breathe a little bit. Where are the folks going to find you? And your thoughts, not only more Friday thoughts, Saturday thoughts, thoughts in general, feelings. Where are they going to be at?
Yeah, mainly inthemoneypodcast.com and on the In the Money Media Network. I'll go on Steve Bick probably Thursday and Friday to talk about the following day each day, and have plenty of thoughts on Twitter as well. So it'll be a good few days for sure. 15th Belmont for me in person.
You're going in person.
I'm going.
That's awesome.
I've let them know at Sam Houston that Belmont is my trip every year, that I'm not gonna give up. And I thought this was gonna be the last year in the big house, that they were gonna do construction next year, but it looks like we'll get one more in the current facility before the Belmont takes a hiatus potentially. So yeah,
You know what's great about the Belmont too, for people that never went, it can handle the crowds. I mean, I went to my first one in 02 or 03. Well, it was War Emblem. We went to the War
02.
Emblem one. 02, yeah. I mean, that crowd was huge that day. I mean, out of the gate though, you knew it was over. He had no chance.
As soon as he stumbled, right.
Yeah. But one thing great about Belmont, they can handle the big crowds. I mean, I went to a Breeders' Cup there in 2001. You know, you can walk around. It's Belmont's awesome because there's plenty of room.
No, it's a great facility, and I'm looking forward to being back. Yeah, I've been to Triple Crown failures. I've been to Triple Crowns. It's and in a year like this where there's no Triple Crown on the line, it's just a great day of racing, right? And the car
absolutely
is consistent with that. So yeah, no chance, no way I could miss it.
All right, thank you to Nick. Me and Roberto will take a quick break. On the flip side of this, young man from New York, we're going to give him a shot, see if he works out. David Aragona coming up with his thoughts on Saturday, and Mike Maloney still to come, so stay tuned. All right, we're back after that short break. Thanks again to Nick Tammaro. We're going to give this new guy a try. He's pretty decent. You can catch him over on DRF. He's posting a ton of betting strategies, videos. Unfortunately, he got saddled. Rob, you were telling me about this. He got saddled with some fake New Maryland guy that's now living in Oklahoma City.
I think he's an Orioles fan. I don't know. Yeah, they do a pretty good show. I have to give them that.
He seems
David carries the show.
I mean that goes without saying. They saddled him with it, but of course, best morning line odds maker in the world, in the universe, the great David Aragona. David, thank you again for joining us. And your back must be hurting from carrying that dude from Oklahoma, but you look well. How's things?
Doing pretty well. Wow, you guys are pretty hard on Craig.
He was very salty towards me last time. He gets it right back. I'll text him after this and let him know.
He's probably out on the bike right now.
Oh yeah. Oh, of course. 100%.
Yeah. Tour de France. He's trained.
Craig has a good sense of humor, and he's one of the nicest people I know in racing. So
I know we love our Craigie. How are you, man? How are things? You this has got to be like just a hellacious week.
It's it's not quite as bad as Derby and Preakness week for me because I'm doing these NYRA races anyway. So it's just kind of getting stuff out the door a little bit earlier, but it's not doing deep dives into multiple cards at once. But I mean, it's the kind of work that you love doing because this Belmont Stakes card on Saturday is just really one of the best cards that I've handicapped all year. And just the star power, interesting handicapping puzzles, a lot to look forward to.
You and I think we talked with Nick about the late portion of Friday's card. And that's some pretty you can get pretty creative there as well. I think if anybody is on DRF and has seen your early picks, you do get very creative on Friday, so check that out. But for Saturday, this undercard, we'll kind of jump around, and I know Rob has a race in mind, but before I pitch it over to you, Roberto, I just want to ask in general, like you are killing it every day with the NYRA races, and shout out to folks. Go check out David's Twitter feed and look at his write-ups for Timeform US through Naira, leaving a lot of money on the table if you're not. But you seem like you know who these horses are sometimes. Like you've just got it figured out. But on days like this, you're getting a lot from the Midwestern circuits, the West Coast circuit, coming up from fairgrounds and what have you. How do you is there any extra like game planning ahead of time? Like, is it just same old, you just treat it like normal race day? Or
I mean, I appreciate you saying that, but sometimes being so familiar with the local horses, it's a double-edged sword because you develop strong opinions about them and you can almost rest on those opinions sometimes when the horses continue to run against each other. And you do want to be nimble and reassess if a race is going to get bet in a different way or if circumstances change. Sometimes you have to change your opinion on a horse that maybe you didn't like in the past. And I guess one of the difficult things, but also one of the opportunities on a day like Saturday or any of these cards this week at Belmont Park is you do have some of these shippers coming in, and there's a little more work to do in figuring out who they've been running against, the quality of those races, the trajectory that they're on, the connections. But if you have an opinion on those horses, sometimes you can find opportunities there. Sometimes they get overbet. So it's definitely a little more work to be done, but I like these races because there are more puzzle pieces to put together.
is it kind of like, hey, just I'm looking at somebody new. It's something new, and it kind of like it's a restart for you.
Well, that's, I mean, I feel like in racing, we're always kind of obsessed with the shiny new object, and you kind of have to determine if you just maybe are gravitating towards a horse because it's the new face in a race. Like I think about the Manhattan on Saturday, where we've got a lot of these familiar horses that we've been seeing running in this division for a while, and then some new faces like Up to the Mark and the Charlie Appleby duo. And you kind of want to gravitate towards these horses because they're the new faces. They also might just be the best horses in a race, but you kind of have to figure that out and determine if you're getting any sort of edge determining that when a lot of people are taking that view of the race.
Absolutely. Roberto, lead us off. I know you got a question.
Well, before we get into the actual races, I have one more question for David. Like when Belmont changed this format, years ago, the Met Mile was always on Memorial Day. Sometimes these stakes races were more spread out years ago. And like anything else in racing, when Belmont changed to this day, I felt like people were like, oh, it's kind of taken away from other weekends. But to me, as a gambler and a fan of the sport, I mean, I honestly think you could say this is like one of the top 3 cards all year. I mean, the way they put this together with the Belmont, I think it's just really worked out well. There's so many, the old hat racing hates any kind of change. And, you probably remember a lot of the pushback from people. They did not like that all the stakes races would be run on this day. But to me, I think it's turned out awesome.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the Breeders' Cup, it really is the best day in racing during the main part of the season. And I think these big days, it's become it makes it more of a certainty that you're going to get the stars in these races because the connections can plan on sending multiple horses to this one day of racing. And it's just the way the game has changed and evolved over the years is you have a lot of the best horses concentrated in a small number of stables. And when you have Brad Cox sending a strong contingent and other trainers from California and Kentucky, they can all converge on New York for this one day. And that there's going to be a stakes race for your horse to run in, you just tend to get a high level of talent across the board in all of these races.
Yeah, and it's really become, it's funny, the average fan or somebody who doesn't go to the track a lot, like I'll say to me, because they know I'm a track guy, and they'll be like, oh, there's really no buzz this year for the Belmont. There's no, and I'm like, oh, you're crazy. Like this undercard. I mean, I don't want to say it outshines the Belmont, but like when you're a gambler and a horse racing fan, like the undercard it's even more bigger than the Belmont Stakes, in my opinion. Just seeing all the other races, and it's a great card. The racing office did a tremendous job with this card.
Yeah, there really isn't a single stakes race on Saturday that's a dud. I mean, either it's a fantastic handicapping puzzle or it's a race that has a real star in it, like some of the races earlier in the day, and we're going to see some heavy favorites. So there's something to look forward to in basically every stakes they're running on Saturday.
Oh, hell, even non-stakes races. I mean, you got 12 horses in the first race for Saturday. I mean, You love to see it. You love to see it. Go ahead.
It's a day I have to pace myself because I'm the kind of
Oh
gambler.
yeah.
By the fourth race, I'm calling, just somewhere to donate blood, or maybe I'm taking one of the wife's jewelry pieces over to get it hocked for some money for the later on in the card. You know
Hey,
what I mean?
plasma. I keep telling you, man.
Yeah. I mean, listen, what's another mortgage at this point? You know what I mean? But I tell you,
Responsibly.
yeah, I tell you, Saturday starting out in the Brooklyn Handicap, one of my best plays of the day. I really love Red Run. I like to get your opinion on him. I like Maker made the claim for 50. Obviously this is a jump up for him. Really like the way his numbers are going. I thought he ran big last out. I always think with a guy like Maker, his horses to me are always better going long. He's just that kind of trainer, like more known for the turf, I would say. But I really like the way this horse is going with his numbers.
Yeah, he definitely took a big step forward when they tried this marathon for the first time last out at Churchill. And I mean, Warren's probably going to be the favorite in this race, and he almost got him on the wire that day. I thought he got a pretty good pace setup, but he might get one again here. We'll see how it shakes out. There are a few horses that could show speed in here. I agree. I think he's definitely one of the major players. I slightly preferred Next coming out of that same race, the Isaac Murphy, just because I thought he's the one that might have needed that start coming off the layoff. That's a big ask to go 12 furlongs on the dirt off that kind of layoff. And I mean, he was a little keen in the early stages, just faded at the end, but he had put together some big efforts going these distances at the end of last year. And he's got speed, but I don't think he's the kind of horse that needs the lead. He showed that in that stakes win at Delaware last year. So I gave him the edge, just thought he might take a step forward off that race. But they're my top two in there.
Yeah, another interesting horse. I mean, you're going to see a lot on horse racing Twitter be popping up if this horse wins, but Collaborate, first time for Ness. That's going to definitely be interesting. His statistics coming into the race. So that's definitely one to look out for too in that race. I don't have the morning line yet up on my form. I don't know what Collaborate is on the morning line.
I made him
but
10
I gotta
to 1.
imagine okay, 10-1. Okay. Well, I gotta imagine he's gonna take some money.
It is funny, Rob. You do realize like Dave made all the lines here, right? You do like you're talking to the guy.
That's right. That's right.
Forgot about that. Well,
Totally
Philadelphia
forgot.
education. What you
Yeah.
gonna do?
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
David, I want to get your thoughts. Just, I love the Jaipur. I feel like every single year that it is, it sucks me in every single year. It looks like a field. Are they getting one of the starting gates from Ascot for this? Because I mean, 14 horses. Obviously Caravel's coming in on just a hellacious winning streak, just kind of owns these 5.5 sprints, and one would imagine likely 6 furlongs is not crazy extra, but I've seen a lot of folks already kind of taking a shot and trying to take their shot against Caravel. What are the pros and cons from making them 3-1? Because I feel like if 3-1 might be a gift, and that seems very reasonable to get.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see, because it does feel like she's one of the favorites on this card that people might want to take swings against. At the same time, like you were saying, she's coming in with quite a reputation. She's won all these races in a row, last year's Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint winner, and seems like she's carried that form into this year. I will say, it's not an ideal post position draw, especially on this course with the rails back at 0 feet. She's going to have to try to avoid going wide. I mean, she does have plenty of speed, but there's speed drawn to her inside. And she's got that huge effort in the Breeders' Cup last year. Her surrounding performances, while they're all solid, I don't know if they're quite up to that level. And maybe she hasn't been facing the kind of competition that she's going to meet here. Granted, you could say that about a lot of horses in this race, aside from maybe Casa Creed, who's just been consistently knocking heads against the best turf horses out there. But this is a tall order for her. I mean, I understand if some might want to regard her as the horse to beat, but I wouldn't want to take too short a price on anybody in this race.
Fair enough. Is in a race like that, when you're making the lines, obviously, is there a price point if you're going to just toss the favorite in your mind? Is there something you're looking for in a race like this? Because it's hard to figure out with 14 going 6. Like, half the field has speed, half the field wants to lay back. How do you kind of design that kind of race in your head when you're first looking at it, making the lines?
Yeah, in these situations, I'll usually kind of start with the shortest prices and the longest prices. And in a race like the Jaipur, when I'm setting the line, I just kind of first like knocked out the 50 and 30 to 1 shots that are not going to take any money in this race. Pretty easy to identify. And then from there, just based on the form coming in, it seems pretty clear that the top two choices are going to be Casa Creed and Caravel in some order. I've got to think that Caravel is going to attract a lot of support. And then beyond that, I'm just trying to sort of fill in the rest. There are some difficult calls. A horse like Dr. Zemf, who I'm kind of projecting is going to be a little bit of a wise guy horse in this race. So making him maybe a shorter price than his form really suggests he should be. But it's tough when you have such a big field. Developing an opinion about each one of these horses and how the public's going to approach them in a race like this. Not easy, but sometimes the smaller fields can be even trickier than the bigger fields, funnily enough.
Okay.
One thing I love about Belmont, and we had Nick on the show yesterday, and he was right. He pointed this out. In those turf sprints at Belmont, the horses do, there is enough stretch there at Belmont. It is big enough where the closers get their chance. I always feel like Pimlico and those smaller tracks, it always seems like something happens with the closers. But at Belmont, they definitely have their chance in that stretch.
Yeah, Casa Creed's won this race twice in a row, and he's definitely one that likes to launch from towards the back of the pack. So we'll see if it works out for him again.
Doesn't Francesa own Casa Creed?
Yeah, owns a piece.
Oh, I know who I'm betting.
I wanted to get to this Woody Stevens. I think it's the best race on the whole card, in my opinion. I'm a huge fan of the outside horse, Drew's Gold. I made a big bet on him last time. Really like his numbers. I'm a sheets player on bigger days. I love to get the sheets and go through the numbers and see how they compare, in time form. And, I just like to use all kind of stuff like that. But sheets primarily on the bigger days. I really like this Drew's Gold. I think he's good enough to go with these horses. I'd love to get your thoughts on the Woody Stevens.
Yeah, it's along with the Jaipur and probably even beyond the Jaipur, just the most competitive race of the day. Because it's really hard to identify who the horses to beat in this race are, unlike with Casa Creed and Caravel. It's just so wide open. And I agree. For Drew's Gold, he's definitely a contender, one of the fastest horses coming in. I think his 123 time form US speed figure last time is the fastest number in this race. So if he can repeat that, he's a major threat to win this. Is stuck all the way outside in that 13 post position, but maybe that's not such a negative because there's so much speed drawn in this race. Somebody who wants to be forward is not going to quite be fast enough to get forward, and they're going to have to deal with a lot of kickback. Maybe that won't be as much of an issue for Drew's Gold on the outside. They'll just have to cover some more ground. So I view him as a contender, but this is a tough race. Assessing the horses coming out of the Pat Day Mile, I kind of think Fort Bragg might be the horse to beat in this spot because he ran so well last time, but there are many other ways to go, price horses to make a case for. So a really fun race to develop some opinions and maybe catch a price.
Yeah, this race is absolutely. I'd say even a horse like, you go back and watch the replay on that Preakness undercard of Fort Warren. I think that was the Friday though of Preakness weekend, but he didn't even break well. Johnny Z from Albany had a clear break in that race. He was gone. That was a speed favoring track that day. That was an incredible run from that horse, I thought, late. He just mowed him down like nothing. His numbers are a little weak to me, but that race just visually was so impressive. I'm kind of interested in him at a price underneath too.
Yeah, I like Fort Warren in this race. He's going to be a big price. There's just so many other ways to go. And his debut for Baffert was really good. And obviously something went wrong. He didn't train on, or for whatever reason, ended up in the Brittany Russell barn for these same connections. But like you said, impressive last time. Really liked the way he ran across the wire. Seems like a horse that's going to get the 7 furlongs. And one of the few in here that's actually passed horses, which I think is important in a race that has so much speed.
Throughout the day, there's some absolute superstars, just horses that have owned their divisions. We talked about Caravel. We talked a little bit earlier about Cody's Wish. There's a few others on the card. In your mind, If I said, and I think I'm stealing this from Andy. I think Andy tweeted this out a few hours ago. Who's most vulnerable on Saturday as a favorite? Who has a chance to lose their crown or their spot at the head of the division?
Oh, we already kind of touched on it, but I'd probably say Caravel. I just think that's a super tough race and a difficult pace situation for her. And so I'd probably say her. I mean, I'm kind of going to steer away from the Woody Stevens because I had trouble even deciding who the favorite was. So, I mean, I don't know. I
Sure.
guess General Jim's a beatable favorite if he even is the favorite. Who knows?
Yeah.
But no, among those that seem like they're supposed to be the favorite, probably Caravel.
Fair enough. And I'd be remiss. We started this show, talked a little bit about it, but the Manhattan, obviously, and I want to point out, you made some very salient points last time out on Warren Point's last race, the Man of War that day. You and Craig, you really kind of talked me off Warren Point and switched me over to Red Knight. I was gonna bet Red Knight anyway, half to my horse, no big deal, just racking up grade ones, no big deal. But Ottoman Fleet just looks so good. Just like Ottoman Fleet might be one of the best ones, if not maybe the best. Siskin on Friday could challenge for that Applebee's brought over. How are you looking at that race? Because it really feels like it's Charlie's to win. I don't know necessarily that Up to the Mark really beat a great field at Churchill for the Turf Classic. I'm not enthused about our 4 and older turfers that route right now. I feel like Charlie just kind of, if he wants to send one over and take it, he'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like it's probably going to be Charlie Appleby or Up to the Mark in this race. I tend to try to beat favorites like this, but I actually think Up to the Mark is really good. And like you said, he has not faced the best competition, particularly last time. That Turf Classic just didn't come up a strong race. But I mean, it's not like he was ever on the rail. He covered ground on the turns and just absolutely mowed that field down. And I mean, when you win a grade 1 turf race by by nearly 4 lengths, you're really doing some running. And the Maker's Mark 2 back that he lost, I mean, really no disgrace losing to Shea Pierre, who looks like he's turned into a monster, and Modern Games, who came back to win a really tough Group 1 in Europe. And arguably Up to the Mark should have been second in that race because I felt like Irad sort of fell asleep a little bit on the far turn before getting him into high gear. And he's just been a completely different horse on the turf, and maybe the 1.25 miles is going to be a difference maker for him. But the way that he finishes, I don't really see it being a major issue. And he also has the tactical speed to be a lot closer to the pace than he's been in some of his recent starts, just given how many plotters are in this race that aren't going to be up close early. So just feels like he makes a lot of sense in here. And I mean, the Appleby runners, they're both okay. Ottoman Fleet, I feel like he's going to be a little overrated just because he's got such a perfect trip last time in the Fort Marcy. And at the end of the day, he was beating Tie to the Sea and City Man, who, I mean, we can knock who Up to the Mark beat, but I mean, the Fort Marcy was still a cut below that. Yeah. And he got the job done. I kind of prefer the other Appleby runner, even though he has like the less live rider on him, just because Warren Point, he was overbet that day in the Man of War, but the trip just did not work out for him. He was wide the entire way, no cover, premature move. He's probably better than that based on his European form. I think based on overseas form, these two are actually pretty similar, and Warren Point's going to be a better price. So I kind of prefer him of the two, but I did view this as Up to the Mark's race to lose.
And Applebee's numbers too are, I mean,
don't you dare talk about Charlie.
No, listen. I'm the
dare.
first one that gave you one of the Appleby winners a couple of Belmont Stakes ago when that horse paid $20 on the grass with Mike Smith. What was that? What was that horse's name? He was the 8. I can't think of his name. It was Belmonte.
Was that Altica?
Or maybe. Paid like $20. I gave it to Stu. He didn't bet it. Now, but this is an interesting race. Now, I love a horse in here. He always burns me, and I'll just keep playing him. Is Soldier Rising. I always find my way to this horse. He always finds a way to either get beat or me to say, oh, next time out, this is it. This is the one. I already know I'm going to be making a win bet on him. I'm going to be using him underneath. I can't get rid of betting this horse. I like Soldier Rising.
And funny enough, they're starting him in race 2. He's going to start running in race 2, and by the time we get to it, it'll be
hopefully.
perfect. It's really nice what they're doing for him.
Set it up.
David, we got to wrap it up because you're a busy man. You got more races to cap and write-ups to do. You're doing a whole bunch of work this week. Where can the good folks find your analysis? And again, pay attention to David's Twitter. The time form breakdowns that you give, the write-ups are absolutely freaking invaluable. So I love capping, and then I read your stuff and I go, oh, I'm stupid. And then I fix it and we make money and we all high five. So let the folks know where they can see your stuff.
I appreciate that. So you can find my Naira analysis on naira.com/timeformUS. I'll be writing stuff for all of these, Thursday, Friday cards at Belmont. On DRF.com, I'll be doing some betting strategies with Mike Beer for the Saturday card. We'll be kind of writing some analysis, putting together some tickets. In addition to that, and like the video and podcast front, I'll be doing some stakes previews for DRF's YouTube channel. And of course, Craig and I will have our podcast out where we handicap the mandatory payout pick 5 on Belmont Saturday card.
Yeah, that's one of the best horse racing podcasts out there. There's a lot of them. I'd put Robin Stewart at number 1, but I would definitely put David and Craig's show at number 2. I mean, their show is.
And you know why
phenomenal.
we're number 1? Because we have David and Craig on the show routine.
That's right.
So,
that's
right.
right.
I mean, it just works out. David, can't thank you enough, brother. Hopefully we can steal you, kidnap you before Saratoga and talk some more Naira racing, the best racing. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. Mike Maloney on the flip side of this, and we're going to plan our sleepover at his house. He doesn't know about it, but it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. So stand by, and we'll be right back. All right, it's main event time, and we're bringing in the closer. He is the current head of the Ellie De La Cruz fan club. He is noted Kentucky gentleman, a mensch, if you will, author of Betting with an Edge, because he has an edge. He's like Razor Ramon. He's a razor's edge, razor sharp. Our friend Mike Maloney. Michael, how are you, my friend? It's always good.
I'm very good, Stu, Rob. I may have an edge, but it is as thin as a razor's edge. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, like we were saying, right after this chat, you're diving into Hawthorne. You probably need to seek some sort of treatment.
Listen, this is the right show if you need a razor, because you got 2 bald guys. Stu and me.
Yeah.
Put us together and you have an ass.
Yeah.
We really need to get sponsored by a razor company of some sort.
Absolutely. Yeah. Something.
Mike, before we get into the Belmont Stakes, and I know everybody's keen to hear your thoughts, little house cleaning. So we've booked the Airbnb, with tickets are bought, rental cars bought. So you just need to start prepping the wife when a black man shows up. Are we going to put a hood on you? Possibly. We're going to Keeneland. I don't know exactly why we would put a hood on you. But it just, just because it might come into play. Zip ties, all that good stuff.
I may handicap better with the hood on.
That's true. We might keep that then. But yeah, I cannot wait. Late October. It's going to be a fun time to hang out with you and see Lex Vegas. I hear great things from Jonathan Kinchin. Your thoughts?
You hear great things from Jonathan about what? About Lex Vegas?
Lex Vegas.
Yeah, Lex Vegas is all right. I was you guys were talking about bourbon a little bit, and a couple of my boys here, they're bourbon gentlemen, gentlemen of of the brown water, so they can show you around the holes in the wall where they like to partake of their
See,
bourbon.
that's what we need. Now, we can't show the Bobcat that. The Bobcat, Rob, last time we went to Boston with the Bobcat, he bought a $200 hat.
Yeah, we might need to just write a letter and send it to Lexington, just apologizing in advance.
Yeah,
for this is absolute scenes bringing this guy somewhere. I mean,
you can't bring an ex-Green Beret anywhere nowadays.
When somebody tells you they're friends with Stu and they've known him a long time, you're okay. Stu's character's questionable, but he's not a bad guy.
Appreciate that, Rob.
Yeah, but no, Bobcat's he's a character.
It's not great. It's going to be something. You're in for a treat for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like a treat. Yeah.
Think Bud at like 18 years old, and that's probably what you got in a 36-year-old man.
Okay, so if we were going to the Derby, I'd have to tackle him to keep him from charging the jocks room. Is that what you're
Thank
saying?
you.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. That's. I thought my analogy was apropos, but yes, 100%.
I got you.
So looking forward to that, and there'll be more on that when we get into college football season. That game will be spotlighted in the college football preview that week for sure. Let's get to the main event though. Belmont Stakes. Always seems like a race that you feel like you have a strong opinion and then it happens and your opinion was wrong, at least from my perspective. I don't know how you've done historically, Rob, in the race. Probably not good, just judging on your normal day-to-day horse racing takes. But Mike, what have you historically noticed from the race? How have you historically approached Belmont Stakes?
I've had my ups and downs, Stu, with the Belmont, and I think it's a different kind of race. I don't think you can approach it exactly like the Derby or the Preakness because of the distance. It's not always the fastest horse that wins the Belmont. A lot of times it's, you've had horses win the Belmont like Tara. You get some seemingly wild results sometimes. And I think it's because of the distance. You need a horse that's going to stay, and that's not always easy to figure out who that horse is before the race. So it's it's just a race unto itself, kind of. To me, I look at it differently than I look at about any other major race in the country.
With this race, I mean, obviously it starts with pace. From your perspective, how do you think this race, pace-wise, in your early estimation, may unfold?
Well, when I look at the race, National Treasure seems like the horse that should be committed to the lead. He seems to run his best race that way. He's won twice in his life, both times on the front end. And Baffert is, he loves to be on the front end. Johnny V has no problem sending a horse out of there. So Cox has 3. I kind of think he may let the one Tappet Shoes be close, maybe to keep the pace honest for his other 2 horses, but I'm just guessing at that. So that's one of the things that makes the race hard for me is I don't see how National Treasure gets really a bad trip, but he got such a perfect setup in the Preakness that, you get, in my eyes, you get no value, betting a horse coming off a perfect setup. And it's been my experience, even when a horse comes off a perfect setup and it looks like they're going to get it again, they rarely do. It's something about the racing gods that you rarely see a horse get 2 perfect trips consecutively. So, even though I know he has some pace edges in here, I still can't get behind National Treasure.
Yeah, what was that a few years ago when Tappet Wright won? Remember Rapoli? Rapoli got mad at either Castellano. Rapoli got mad at somebody. He didn't like the way they rode his horse in the race. He thought they should have went to the front and they didn't go. Something always funky happens with the pace. I mean, look at Smarty Jones. I mean, nobody saw, that kind of pace, that hot. I mean, Stuart Elliott still kind of gets dumped over here in Philadelphia for going that hard. But to me, when you think you're on the best horse, I mean, just put him on, just put him on a lead and go. You got to that point. I never had a problem with the way Stewie wrote the race, but you make a good point with this is a strange type of race. There's always a weird result. I mean, to me, I always like to bet a grinder in a race like this at a mile and a half. Not maybe the horse with the quickest turn of foot. I mean, listen, you're always going to have, your American Pharaohs, your Secretariat's horses that were just unbelievable. I always thought Real Quiet's run was unbelievable. I still can't believe to this day he got nailed on the wire. I thought he was home free. Victory Gallop with some run in the lane there. But to me, I always like to bet a grinding type style in this race. I think that's what works the best.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I've thought all through the Triple Crown preps and the first two races in the Triple Crown that Tappet Trice would be the horse that I would love in the Belmont, because he kind of screams Belmont horse, just his style, and he has that kind of one pace grinding style that you're talking about. And I totally agree with that. But now looking at him and watching his race in the Derby, it's hard to be confident in getting behind Tappet Trice at a fairly short price, because that race at Churchill was just, he just didn't show much run, didn't show much finish at all. That's concerning. Now he seems to be training well at Belmont. Fletcher seems to be confident in him, and if he runs his race, he's one of the top contenders. But I just the value player in me has a hard time taking a horse off a poor effort, an unexcused effort that from everything I can tell, back at a short price. So I know he's capable of winning, but he's a little hard to take in my eyes.
Yeah, he just had no run in that Derby, right? Like he was dead. Coming to the three quarters there, you could just tell he had nothing. I mean, he was just all out and done. I loved his Tampa Bay Derby. I thought that was really impressive. He got off to a bad start that day. That's another thing with this horse. Out of the gate, he's usually not the sharpest. He doesn't have the cleanest brakes. He's hard to handle. I'll say the one thing for him, Blazing Sevens did come back and run a huge race in the Preakness, and he couldn't even get close to him in the Bluegrass. So maybe that bodes well for him. But I agree with you. He's really hard to take off of that Derby. I mean, to me, even though Pletcher's probably top 5 trainers of all time, I mean, his Derbies always make me nervous. I'm not a big fan of his Derby, his track record in the Derby, but the Belmont is something that's big to them. Obviously, a New York-based guy. He's had rags to riches. He's had plenty of success. We were just talking about the other one, Tapper, right? I mean, he's had plenty of success in the Belmont, but I agree with you there. That he was tough to take in that race because, he didn't have a terrible trip in the Derby, and boy, he just had nothing that day.
Yeah, he's a horse that in my horizontal wagers, I'm going to have to use him just because I know his best race can win it. But I have a hard time making him my key vertically, keying him in the exactas or the tries, because I just don't trust him off the last race. What's your guys' opinion about Forte?
I'll start. I am nervous, and that is only because the horse in the trainings in the morning session, you see some bobbling going on. I also kind of think that, seeing Pletcher's reaction Derby morning when Forte got scratched, felt like if you read that, he's like, the horse is sound, it's ready to go. So if the horse is sound, they were always going to point towards the Belmont. And if that's the goal, it's almost like you have to absolutely use them. But I'm going to use them very defensively. That's my position.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way I feel, because he's a lot like Tapit Trice. He's a completely different kind of horse, but in betting wise, Forte seems like a horse that his best race can win it, but he could also not show up at all. A couple of comments I've heard about the way that he's training, they haven't been impressed with some of his training. So I'm on the fence with him too. I just don't have a strong opinion about it.
I think that was the best show Derby week, was that Saturday morning. I got a couple texts at like 5 a.m. that I don't think they're going to let him run. And then following that Kentucky-based reporter who was on the backside, I can't forget the guy's name now, but just all the drama in the barn. And, being the person before that's owned horses, and I worked in the horses when I was younger, like I've seen that feeling before, where obviously not a Kentucky Derby, but like these guys put all their work is into this, all the money, the breeding, the groom, Fletcher. I mean, it just Napoleon's face. I mean, there's no bigger disappointment when the vets are having that meeting. I swear it almost looked like they played it out for TV, and like the vets are huddling with each other. And, Fletcher, like I was just saying, I mean, this is one of the best horsemen ever. I really don't think he put a horse in that he didn't think at least is, even all these horses, right? None of them are usually 100% sound. I mean, thoroughbred horses, if you ever see how skinny their legs are and how fast they have to go, I mean, they're the kind of horses you come in one morning, they're sound, you come in the next day and there's an issue. I mean, they're hard horses to keep sound. I mean, look how fast they have to go. And even that's a time for a different conversation. The breeding, the way that's went, just how smaller build they are, some of them, with their legs now. But just watching that play out there every morning in their faces. But I will say one thing, for him to come back in this race, they could have all summer now. He could wait and, run in the Haskell, run in the Jim Dandy, get ready for the Travers. Travers is their big thing, obviously. I think for him to come back and put him in this Belmont, I think it's a little bit of redemption for them too, that, they really wanted him to race at Churchill. And I think he's out to prove a point, Todd, that, we were right. We knew what we were doing. We would never put a horse in that kind of thing. So I don't know. That's just my opinion on it.
I honestly, everything I've heard is that they were always going to skip the Preakness and they were going to point towards Belmont. So I think that gives a little bit more confidence to me. Forte's a little bit higher than Tapit Trice, but both are defensive uses. But again, it's hard for me to figure out exactly who I want to pick. And oddly enough, I'm looking at Arcangelo, the number 3, a horse I gave Rob, very famously. Also I like a horse later on in the card, Secretariat. Well, I'll get to that next time. But Arcangelo, there's only not many races in the book, but massive jumps each time. That's a cause for pause. But if you look at that Peter Pan closing into slow fractions, doing so with a time form figure that is actually, I think, the highest or second highest in the field behind Angel of Empire. This horse looks like it could be really something. And at 8-1, you have to think that the pace is going to set up nicely. To me, this would be my key horse, is Archangel. Mike, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the 3.
Well, Rob told me to never agree with one of your picks, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to go against Rob's advice here.
You hate to see it. We're going to light a candle for you at church.
We're going to just call it Mike's pick. Stu, we won't even.
Yeah. I didn't say the 3.
Yeah.
I don't love the horse, but this race is so confusing to me, and I can I can find something I don't like about all the legitimate contenders. So in that case, you're supposed to take a price, right? That's what you told me, Stu. So
I read it in a book one time.
I think, you know, value wise, the only horse that you know, that would offer any value in here would be Arcangelo. He's improving, lightly raced. If he moves forward one more time off that last race, off the Peter Pan, that would put him right there with these horses. And we haven't mentioned Angel of Empire, but I think that might be my main exacta box, just maybe trying to get those two together and press them up a little bit in the picks.
Is there a worry
How do you
with
feel
Angel
about?
of,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Steve.
is there a worry with Angel of Empire? Because I know historically the book on the Belmont is you want to be close. It's not a race that necessarily lends itself to closers. And I think for me, my main worry is that Pratt is going to have them a little bit too far back. Certainly can hit the board for sure. 100 and almost that could be a key horse as well if you're playing the verticals. But that's my main concern. I worry.
And once again, I agree with what you're saying. That's my main concern also. Cox is putting the blinkers on, and I heard Cox say that Pratt, the jockey, recommended to put the blinkers on after the Derby. So that's telling me that, you know, that Pratt may have, may want the horse to be a little more forward early. So, and Pratt's very good about, you know, when there's a lot of tugging and slow pace action in New York, he's one of the guys that's not afraid to send into that and get a little position. So, you know, the horse hasn't shown that on his PPs. If he could be mid-pack, you know, that would be great. But if I had to pick one horse to key around in tries, I believe it would be Angel of Empire. I think he's the most consistent, reliable horse in the race.
He's definitely the lunch pail type horse of this race, isn't he? I mean, he always brings his game. Sometimes you always think with blinkers, like the rider, like you would think there, Pratt's thinking, well, maybe he likes to hang a little bit. But I mean, the move he made in the Arkansas Derby, he went by them like they were standing still. I thought last time it was just a matter of I thought he got the perfect setup, to be honest with you. I just thought Castellano, he saved the ground, right? He kind of, I don't want to say he outrode him because Pratt's a great rider. I don't really think he made a mistake. Castellano got the jump on him, and you know, that was the race. It will be interesting with the blinkers. I wanted to get your opinion. We were talking about Arcangelo. When you're doing your handicapping and you have a 3-year-old like this, like you were saying, he's lightly raced, right? He comes in off of that. He comes into that Peter Pan only coming off 3 maiden races where he had finally won his last time out. In his second career outing, he did go up against King's Barn, who, you know, looked legit coming into the Derby. Obviously, got crushed in that early pace and quit. But in the Peter Pan, to me, the horse looked loaded during the mile. I thought he was a winner going to be easily. And the Cox horse fought him all the way to the wire. He got real game down near the wire, and he got up by a head. A big effort for this horse. When you see a lightly raced horse with a big effort like that, are you the kind of, you know, when you're doing your handicapping, is something that you'll knock going into his next race, that he'll bounce a little bit, or you think they can usually come back with that kind of effort?
You know, that's a great question. I think it depends on the horse, and if he were a horse that had more races, or a horse that may be a little older that had a grinding stretch duel like that, it definitely can take it out of him sometimes. But I think this horse is still learning and moving forward. You know, he runs faster every time he runs. His last race, that probably will help in his development, because that was the first time he'd ever been in a dogfight. You know, that's the first time he'd ever had to re-break and respond to a challenge late in a race. So he handled it the right way. I think Bishop's Bay is a really nice colt. So, I thought he was impressive, Arcangelo, the way he did it. He's going to get a class test Saturday. He's going to meet a different kind of horse than he's met. But if he, like I say, if he moves forward, that last race is not going to win it. But if he moves forward again, as he has every race, I think he's got a big shot, and I think he is probably going to offer the best value in the win pool of the contenders.
Yeah, it was impressive that last time out. And yeah, like you said, even the pace factor too. I mean, just going through the PPs again, looking at it here. I mean, National Treasure, he was game towards the wire. To me, I'd say I thought Blazing Sevens. I bet Blazing Sevens. I thought he was going right by him. I'll be honest, I was counting my money in the middle of the stretch. I was like, oh, he's got him. National Treasure is going to finish. But with the blinkers and everything like that, and one thing about Bob's horses, I mean, listen, he's probably the most controversial person in racing. I mean, people have their takes on him.
Oh, I could name a couple more. I could name a couple more controversial.
But one thing about this guy, I mean, he just knows how to train for these Triple Crown races. I mean, these things are ready to go. Some of them will get beat, but in a lot of years, even when his horses had gotten beat in the Derby, like Point Given comes to mind. I mean, his horses, he knows how to get them ready for even the next time out. They're even better usually. So he does scare me getting the lead. A horse I really like it here at a price, and I'm really just taking a shot with this. I've said it on here before. I do like to play the sheets on bigger days. I like looking at the numbers when you have really good horses, because I just think, it's such a slim margin in these races between winning it, and all the horses are so talented. They're usually big money purchases. They're meant to be here. Tappet Shoes is a horse that I kind of like. Brad Cox, he kind of seemed like he liked this horse in the wintertime, gave him a little bit of a break, started him back out at Oaklawn in that stakes race against Red Route one, who's on the outside in this race. But I kind of like the way this horse is coming into here. I like that he went to Ortiz. I really like the inside draw. I'm going to be using this horse underneath at a price. He's a Tappet. Tappets kind of take some more time to come around. They usually, a lot of them, they're not good actors in the barn. They're usually very hard to handle, and they usually take a lot of time to mature. And I kind of think maybe this horse can round in form. And Cox kept him at Churchill with him working there. I don't know. I kind of like this horse at a price.
Well, you're definitely going to get a price, and I think it's a positive that Cox already has two. He was well represented in the race, so he must think the horse fits. And Tappet as a stallion has a great record in the Belmont, so that you got a positive on the breeding side.
He's all over this Belmont, isn't he, Tappet? He's everywhere in this race.
Yeah, I'm not the only guy that's figured that out, apparently.
Hey, Mike, switching over to a little bit of the wagering strategy. Is it just me, or I feel like Derby Day is its own thing. You approach it a certain way. Preakness is a certain thing. We'll leave it at that. And then the Belmont's, to me, much harder, but it's a classier set of races going into the day. I mean, you got some very full fields it seems like everybody just waits for Belmont Day to a certain extent. You're getting those horses that, needed a break or coming off a decent layoff, and they pick Belmont Day. A lot of full fields, some really great races. I mean, the undercard on Saturday, the card on Friday has just been phenomenal, honestly. How do you approach a day like this compared to the other days of the Triple Crown, or is there a difference?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a difference in it, and there's a few things that I do differently, and one of them I know I've mentioned on your airwaves is just, but it's important, and I'll mention it again. It's just the idea of start out, slowly. I don't know how many races they're going to have Friday and Saturday, but in the neighborhood of 12 to 14 races probably. You're going to give plenty of opportunity for action, and it's easy to get excited on those days and get in too deep too early, and then be underfunded when your best ideas come up later in the day, or when you really start to get a good feel for the way the track's playing, and you've seen what's happened in the early races, and then you've kind of handcuffed yourself as to what you can do. You're either going to have to go over your limit or make a smaller bet. So that's one thing. Another thing is there's a lot of opportunity. I don't make many place and show bets, but on Derby Day, Belmont Day, Breeders' Cup weekend, I will start out with a X number of dollars and dedicate it to a place and show pool, and I'll start that on Friday. And I'm very cautious about betting it. I'll probably only bet it maybe 3 times each day, or maybe just twice in a day. But roughly 5 times over the weekend, if I can get it through. And I'm just going to do it on things I feel totally like I'd be shocked if this horse didn't run first or second, or I'd be shocked if this horse didn't hit the board. I might make a show bet. It doesn't always have to be the favorite, but it's just a horse that is a consistent horse that's not overbet in the spot, that's proven at the distance, that the way the track's playing is going to suit his style. Just kind of a bulletproof horse, I call him. And I'll parlay that back, whatever I get back, on the first bet, I'll parlay it back on the second one. And I don't ever move to the win pool. I just keep it in place and show. And it's amazing sometimes what, sometimes I'll find 7 bets over the weekend. But if you get through without, having a miss, lots of times I'll triple my money on that bet. And you don't take a huge amount of risk. And if you're in a group, it's always a fun group bet to move the decision-making process around to the different people in your group. So that's another thing to think about.
We'll be employing that when we go to Keeneland.
Yeah. There's just going to be so much value as compared to a regular day especially in the vertical pools. If you can find, there'll be horses that will be 8 or 10 to 1 that will be very likely to be in the exacta or the try. Somebody that's had a prep race, or somebody that had a bad trip or ran against a bias in their last race, and they're one of the main contenders, but they just don't, they don't catch the kind of play that a favorite or second choice does, because they have that little not their prime race in their last start. They were prepping, or maybe they didn't run the right distance, or maybe they didn't have enough pace in that race, whatever. But it just wasn't their race, and now they're set up, they're in the right spot, they're ready to run their race. When I can find a horse like that at 8 or 10 to 1 on a big day, I want to really look through and see if I can come up with some exacta or trifecta ideas, and move a few dollars into those pools, and be don't get locked into the favorite with these horses. Sometimes you can get tries that'll pay $1,000, $2,000 on those days. There'll be big fields, and there'll be competitive fields in a lot of the races. So those are a few of the things I try to do. Because
you do a lot of Dutching with the exacta pools. I've been
I don't. I know a lot of people do that, and I'm not against it. It's just not something that I do. If I like, if my first choice is 8 to 1, and my second choice is 20 to 1, I'm not gonna play to have, if that exacta hits, I don't want to make the same amount I make if my third or fourth choice hits. I want to crush their soul when that happens. I want to make a month or make a year, so, because it doesn't happen very often in racing.
Yeah.
But it never happens if you don't put yourself in that situation. And, you don't hit those kind of tickets by boxing 5 horses, in my experience. You hit those kind of tickets when you commit yourself to a longer price horse that you have sound reasons to like, and then you do a good enough job to hook him up, and you get lucky enough that the race comes where your key runs in, and then you get another long shot that comes with him, and then the sky's the limit. You're gonna make up for a lot of bad times when you hit that one. You don't have any bad times to make up for, you do, Stu?
Hey, look, you know what? I'll tell you what. It has been a good. I only play short spurts of the year.
Yes.
I focus in. It's been a good start to the year.
Fantastic.
Can't say the same for Rob though.
Well, I'm like Mike. I'm playing mostly every day. If I'm playing my Yonkers at night, I'm playing, I'm sneaking a couple bets here and there.
How your wife hasn't hidden all the credit cards is just beyond me. Next time I'm up there, I'll talk to her.
She's a saint.
You think? More news at 11.
Rob is a distance horse. He's made for the Belmont. His betting is a mile and a half, and Rob has got a lot of horse. He's got a double hand load, and he's just waiting to turn into the lane.
That's me. I bet so dumb at times. I'm exactas. I'll do straight instead of box. I'll just do dumb stuff like that because I think as a horse player, you're always trying to come up with your angles, and you want to be right? Like you want to be the contrarian. I mean, you always want your picks on top, and I get in a way sometimes of, I'll play it straight for 20 or 25. I should just box it for 10, but no, I'm trying to hit the number straight, and I get greedy,
Hey, we all do that. I was shaking my head. I don't remember the exact race now, but last week I was shaking my head. I thought, you've been doing this 50 years basically, and you still, you make some elementary mistake once in a while. But, I think that's the nature of playing the horses. You're making thousands of decisions a day in the handicapping part, the betting part, the, choosing what races to even get into part. So you're making so many decisions. Once in a while, you're gonna make one you aren't very proud of.
I find it hard if I miss
won
early in the day. If I like something and I didn't play, it happened to me last Saturday, or it was last Sunday at Monmouth. It was last Sunday at Monmouth. I liked the horse. He was like 17-1. And I said, something, I'm just going to wait. It was early in the card. I said, I'm just going to wait till later in the day. And you know what? He gets up on the wire. And I was just like talking to myself for an hour. I'm down in my basement. I got the baseball going. I'm having a couple of drinks, and I'm like, I can't believe you didn't bet it. You said I'm killing myself for not playing him because I liked him, but like anything else, you talk yourself off of it.
I've been there.
Well, don't worry, Rob will be there again very soon.
Saturday.
Well, I'd give it at least 17 hours, but
as long as we sweep the Tigers, I'll be all right.
How dare you? You know what? We were having such a nice conversation. What a dirty.
You got a Reds man here. They're one of the hottest teams in the National League. They got one of the biggest prospects. The guy hit a 435-foot home run tonight.
No, it's 458.
Oh, it's 458?
Yeah, it almost went out of Great American Ballpark. It hit the top row of the right field. Where did you find him? That guy looks like a created player in a video game.
Yeah, he looks good. I actually I'm cheating a little bit because I have it on here behind you. So the Reds just took down the Dodgers. So good night for the home team.
Hey, I'll tell you what, if you could ever get that pitching, oh my God. I mean, it is like Katie bar the door. Do Do the guys in the bullpen just come out with kerosene and just light spray that down?
Yeah, but that's the problem is a lot of them do. We actually have a good closer, but if the starter doesn't go 7, the trying to get to the closer is our issue.
They have a fun little team. I'll tell you what, I've been watching them a little bit as far as gambling. I like to keep my eye on them. I like playing their overs. Their lineup is fun, man. They got some players in there. I mean, they hit the baseball. They're entertaining. Like you said, they're on their way up, the Reds.
Yeah, and if you're playing those numbers, I mean, that's your game and not mine. But I imagine there's some bad comps you're going against that are, the numbers are probably in your favor right now if you're betting them to score runs.
Oh no, they're never in my favor betting baseball. I will text Stu during the day
I
just
quit.
the most horrific things about playing baseball.
I quit.
These Vegas lines are just. Even I was listening to a Vegas show the other day, and the guy's like, I'm a pro. The guy's like, I'm a pro sports bettor, and he's like, baseball just breaks me down to like. I mean, Vegas gets these numbers, these totals, they are so razor sharp. It is amazing. I don't ever want to say it's fixed, but like the way they set these lines, it's incredible.
That's what Laurel Park does to me.
Oh, same here. Same here. Laurel Park just puts me in the Cobra clutch. Shout out to the RIP Sheiky. The Iron Sheik passed today. So we gotta, just absolute camel clutch tapping out. I won't do Maryland. I'll take friends up there. I'll bet Naira when I'm at the track, and you guys have fun. I can't do it.
It's a tough track.
It's tough. And what's even tougher is we're at the end of our show. Mike has to go look at the first race at Hawthorne. He's in for a night. Electric card tomorrow at Hawthorne. So that'll do it for us. Thank you to Mike Maloney, David Aragona, Nick Tammaro. And join us next week. We'll probably end up talking baseball or something fun. So stay tuned. Until then, take care, brush your hair, and we'll see you after a while.